everybody, hello everybody, hello everybody, hello everybody, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Hello everybody, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you like Therian and furry content, as well as arts and crafts, you are in the right place. Make sure to hit the like button on this video and subscribe to my channel if you like this kind of content, and let's get on with the video. So today I am back with another episode of Make a Mask with me. I've actually already started sculpting this mask because I've recorded this video before and it did not work. So I'm trying it again, and I'm going to be sculpting this cat mask and this cat mask. And both of these cat masks will be available for sale up on my Etsy at some point. I don't know quite what they're going to be yet. Probably an orange cat. I like making those. But I don't know what the cats are going to be, but I will be sculpting them today in this video. Now the topic of today's video may be a little bit controversial, but I don't really think it should be, and that is mask businesses. This is all about why you should not start a mask business. And this isn't me trying to gatekeep selling masks. I would love to have other people selling masks too. It's more so why there's a lot more to it than you think to run a mask business. Now, I say all the time in my live streams because a lot of you guys want to run your own mask business, and you're like, how do you get started? I want to start a mask business. And I always say don't do it unless you are 18 years of age or older because of taxes. Now, if you live outside of the US, this isn't exactly a problem, and it could be, but not nearly as much as the tax system in the United States. See, in the US, taxes are complicated and confusing and awful. It's really not a well thought of plan. It's really disorganized. Taxes in the United States is a mess. It is just, it makes no sense. And when you go into stuff like Etsy and making your own business, you have to do a lot of the tax stuff yourself. Not that you don't always, but it's a lot harder to do it on your own, because if you don't reach, well, hold on a second, let me start over. So the reason it's so difficult to do it yourself is because Etsy doesn't really give you all the information you need for tax season. It does, kind of. You just have to find it yourself. Now, you don't get a 1099 or a K... I forget what the form is in the US, but usually when you have a job and you go to, like, an office building or, like, wherever you work, they provide you with, like, the forms you need for taxes when tax season comes, so that you know how much you made in the year and how much either the government owes you or how much you owe the government. And the thing with selling on Etsy is that you're going to have to owe the government some money. See, when you get the payment from Etsy, it doesn't take out all the sales tax, or at least not all the taxes. I don't know if it's the sales tax, but it doesn't take out all the taxes that you actually owe on it. So you get more money than what you actually are making. Anyway, Etsy will not send you your 1099 form unless you make over $10,000 of profit on Etsy. So for most people, they're not going to make that much money. Now, actually, they lowered it this year. So in 2024, it was actually only $5,000 you had to sell to get your 1099 form. Not 10,000 like I had in the previous years, but still a significant amount of money, especially if you're only going to be selling, like, you know, masks part-time. Now, regardless of if you make that that minimum or not, you're still going to owe taxes. Now, Etsy will not send you any forms or any information, so you will not know how much you have to pay unless you try and go out of your way to find out how much you have to pay. Because if you don't do that, then the IRS will eventually catch up to you and you will owe a lot more. So I would be very careful. Now, part of the reason I say to be 18 and older to run the Etsy is that you would be in charge of it yourself, all of it. If you have your parents in charge of a lot of your Etsy, there's a lot more risk involved for both you and your parent. And a lot of that risk comes from, again, not paying taxes, because Etsy will not tell you how much you owe. You have to dig for that unless you make over $5,000. And if you don't make over $5,000, you're going to have to dig for it. So it's important to do that. Now, it's important to do that, which I shouldn't have to say, but taxes in the US, they don't like when people tax evade. And it's a form of tax evasion if you don't report that stuff. And if you don't report it, you'll have to owe even more. So, just so you know. Now, another thing is customer service. So, here's one reason you don't want to have a Therian Etsy mask business. Now, this is different in my case, just because I have a pretty large following that follows me primarily for my masks. So this is kind of my whole thing. But one thing is that you will have to deal with both parents that are upset at you and kids who are upset at you pretending to be their parents. Not necessarily pretending to be their parents, but some people are going to get upset with you for something, and you'll have to deal with it. See, it's a business, and I'm not joking when I say that it is a business, because you have to deal with all sorts of things that come with running a business, which includes Karens and people that are really, really, really mean. Some people just don't understand and won't take no for an answer, and you can't make everyone happy. So opening up mass commissions is kind of a really hard thing to do if you don't know how to handle customer service. Now, this could be a problem when it comes to like pre-made mask designs too, like if you're just selling a mask on Etsy, but if you're selling a commission on Etsy, this is where a whole other circus of problems comes into play. So one thing I would recommend is if you are trying to sell masks and you are really devoted and you want to do a mask business, do not take commissions until you are ready. I think a lot of people don't realize the stress of opening commissions until they open it. But taking custom art for people, especially art that you are making by hand and like sculpting, like in my case, opens the door for a lot of people to have issues with it and complain and not really like what you're doing. And that is a lot of stress on a person. I've had a couple commissioners just be like complete nightmares to me. I've had them just hate everything I made and force me to do other stuff and like change designs after it's sculpted. And I would just let them, because I didn't know any better. Now I do. I'm not letting people walk all over me again, ever. People can be demanding, people can be really rude, and commissions can be a lot, especially because you have to make someone else's like design. And making someone else's design is bringing their design to life, and if you do it wrong, they are going to get mad at you. And if they don't get mad at you, they still could leave a bad review, they could do a lot of like damage to your Etsy if they really wanted to. So be careful with that. But on the topic of commissions, one thing I see over and over on people's Etsys, I sometimes scroll through Etsy just to like see what other theory masks are around, because I like them, you know, I want to see what other theory masks are available. And the amount of you guys who make theory mask commissions on Etsy and do it like wrong, illegally, or against Etsy's TOS, which is terms of service, is astronomical. So many of you guys do commissions the complete wrong way that can get you in so much trouble if Etsy was to pay attention to it, or if the law was to pay attention to it. Again, tax evasion. So what I'm talking about specifically is misusing Etsy or going against Etsy's TOS for making these listings. So a lot of commission listings I see are like, don't buy this listing, or the listing is the wrong price, or that the price changes, and you guys can't do that on Etsy. It's against their TOS. One thing I see a lot of you guys do is please read description before buying. And the description says things like, this is not the actual price, you'll have to pay more later, or you'll have to get a separate listing, which will be the rest of the cost. Having someone buy the first listing, which does not give them a product, is against Etsy's TOS. If you have them buy a listing, like pay real money for this listing, but they have to buy a second listing later, I'm pretty sure that may be illegal at worst, but it's not a good business practice at best. You're making your customer pay for nothing just to reserve the slot, which is against Etsy's TOS because you are not giving them either a digital product or a physical product, and you have to provide one of the two with your listing. I'm fairly certain, because if you're buying a product and you get nothing and you have to pay more later for that product, that's not really how Etsy works. Be honest and open about your prices, okay? This is something that I see a lot of smaller Etsy mask shops make, is this mistake, which is they are not open about the prices, okay? Don't make people guess how much they have to pay you. Having the price options of complex, slightly complex, more complex, makes it more confusing. It means that they don't understand what they're actually paying for, and it's kind of a really bad business practice to be like, sorry, you actually ordered this mask, so you have to pay more. Guys, it's really kind of rude. But if your mask costs, like, because one thing a lot of people do is a base price and add-ons cost more, which makes sense, you know, obviously an add-on would cost more, but make sure that's clear. if it's like, you know, if you have a mask, it's like a cat mask base, okay? And you're like, okay, it costs $25 extra for a snout, then have them select that option instead of being like, you have to make a new listing and pay the, you know what I mean? It makes more sense to just have a lot of options to select from for the mask and then have that price predetermined rather than trying to calculate yourself and then charge a new listing for them specifically, especially if they've already bought the other listing. It's just really bad business practices. Now, I'm not hating on anyone who does this. I just want to be clear that I'm not trying to like target anybody with me saying this. I'm just saying that if I was going to buy a mask and the listing for a commission, this is a custom mask. Like I'm getting a mask that is supposed to be my exact design. And they're having all these hidden prices like this costs $5 extra, this costs $10 extra, especially if it's things like the snout and the fleece, like essentials for the mask. It's kind of really rude to just charge extra for fleece or for a longer snout if it has to have a longer snout. Like, charging extra for a longer snout is not an issue. But if you're like advertising and making it look like it comes with a longer snout, but it's actually extra, guys, don't do that. Not because you can't do that, but because it's really mean and like kind of a bad business practice. But another thing is, I want to make it clear, as someone who sells these for a living, as someone who's done this successfully before, one thing I wouldn't do is charge for like extra stuff. Now that doesn't mean like that you can't charge for like a snout. I mean like if it's $2 extra for this, $3 extra for that. It just adds to the confusion and makes no sense because you're really not making that much more money by charging $3 for a tongue. Because Etsy's going to take out about that much anyway from taxes. So it makes more sense to have it include those things, but be for a higher price. And then I want to bring up, when you're pricing your items for sale on Etsy, look at what other people are charging and compare your prices to them based on the quality of your mask and the materials made, not necessarily the time spent doing it. Now this is a controversial take. This one is like genuinely controversial. And that is, I don't think if you are running a mask business and you are trying to get started on your mask business, that you should be charging hundreds of dollars right away. Because you have to kind of work your way up so you build an audience and a business. Because what you want to do is get those reviews. Because once you have those 5-star reviews in for a cheaper item, then you could start raising your prices as quality increases. Because chances are your masks are pretty good, you know, if you're going to sell them. But quality will increase still over time. And if you're charging the premium prices immediately, there's nowhere else to go once your masks improve. You can't charge more than that because they're really not worth more than that. Regardless of how much time you spend on the mask, there's also a limit to how much people are going to spend on it regardless of time spent on it. And that is the disappointing part of making art, is that some people won't see that you spend all those hours and hours making the masks, and if you charge for those hours but it's not like shown, and like there's no way to like know that there was like 17 hours of labor put into this one mask, then people are gonna not understand why you're pricing it that high. So it's better to probably charge a bit lower until you're ready to charge the higher prices, especially if you're starting out. That way you can also build a customer base and have more people like buying your masks and leaving reviews, rather than charging like $150 for your first mask and just having it sit for a while. It's better to charge like $75 or like $50 and then have it sell and get the reviews and start building your business. You know what I mean? Another thing I want to bring up is mask supplies and materials that you should be using if you're going to sell your masks. This is another hot take. If you are making your masks primarily out of cardboard, okay, you cannot sell them, like ethically. You should not sell them. Now that's a hot take because a lot of people sell cardboard masks, and you might be thinking, well, why can't I? And it's more so because it's kind of a bad business move again, because the mask will not last. Yes, it can be made out of cardboard and be beautiful, and you could just display it, but chances are people that buy the mask want to wear them, and if there's cardboard in it and the person were to sweat wearing it, such as doing quads, then they just have to throw the mask away because there's no way to properly clean it. If it's for just a display item and it's made out of cardboard, that's fine. But if it's for a mask that's actually going to be worn, you don't want to have it be thrown away after just a couple of uses, because if you make it out of cardboard, there's no actual way you can clean the mask. So if you can't clean it, you essentially can't wear it. So if you're making your masks out of cardboard, I'd wait until you can get different materials in order to start selling them. But now I'm going to give some tips, like just general advice that I've learned for selling on Etsy, for those of you guys who may be starting a mask business this coming year. And one of those tips is when you're making your listings, put all the information, like this is for commissions. If you're doing custom mask commissions, in the listing, in the slides, in the photo slides, that's where you want to write all of your text. You do not want to write it in the description. You don't even have to write anything in the description, really. You should, but nobody checks it. Etsy puts the description in such like weird places and in a way where it like looks like you shouldn't check it, which I think is intentional based on how Etsy works. But most people don't check it. So if there's important information such as like, again, the listings where it's like read description before buying, if there's important information, put it in the slides, the photos. Add text to the photos and like make it like photo, text, and then be able to have it in the slides. That way it's impossible to miss. Because that way nobody can say that they didn't read that direction because, hey, it was in the slide, you know? If you're doing commissions, this is all just general advice for commissions because, I mean, pre-mades you can kind of figure out on your own. But if you're doing commissions, make sure you have a TOS yourself or a terms of service because there may be masks that you don't want to work on, and unless you're like able to accept every mask opportunity that comes your way, you want to be able to refuse a mask. Another hard part about making masks for a living and doing it like through Etsy is that Etsy does take out a significant portion of your profits. However, I actually like Etsy doing this because it makes a lot of the things that I'd have to do on my own if I was to sell these on my own website a lot easier. So if you are going to sell, don't make your own website unless you have a like seriously huge audience for your masks. It is just not worth the time or energy because people trust Etsy. Actually, some people don't even trust Etsy. So if you have your own site, it's less likely that someone's going to go on it to buy your product because it's like, oh, this could be a scam. But Etsy has that kind of security and backing for a lot of people where they're like, oh, okay, Etsy, that's a company. I could at least get a refund if I don't get my mask. You know what I mean? So I would recommend using Etsy if you are going to sell masks and not making your own website. Again, unless you have like a huge following, then it might be worth it. This one is huge, and I feel like a lot of people don't talk about it, but it is, don't focus on freebies and do not pay extra money to add freebies to your orders. Okay. One thing that people kind of have grown to almost expect at this point is freebies in an order. You do not need to include freebies, and if you can't afford to include freebies, don't include them. Because it's an extra cost that you have to add up. For me, my freebies are stickers that I get for like $2 on the internet for a pack of them. Like, I just order stickers when I order other stuff, so that I'm already spending money on other things. And then I have the stickers to add as bonuses. It doesn't break the bank, it doesn't cost really any labor for me. Bonuses is something that is not to be expected in a mask order, and it's not required. You do not have to add, like, trinkets or stickers or anything. You could literally just write a handwritten note with, like, paw prints. That's what I do, you know? But, listen, don't spend too much money on freebies. Actually, don't spend really any money on freebies. If you spend more than $2 on freebies for the next 5 masks you're making, you are making a mistake. Don't add the freebies. You do not want to spend money on it if you do not have to because it's not required, and it's an extra cost to your business that you may not expect and could get pricey depending on where you get your freebies and how often you send your packages. I bring this up because I used to do candy bracelets as freebies, but that became way too much to have to do the labor of making the bracelets each time, so I decided to switch to stickers. Because ideally I'd do the candy bracelets again, it's just it takes so long and the beads are expensive, obviously, so it's just not worth it to do that. So again, if you're doing freebies, make sure to keep it cheap, especially because they're free. Like, they're not part of the price of the mask. And if you are one of the people that I've seen on Etsy that includes in the cost of the mask the cost of freebies, don't do that. That's so like, guys, that's so mean. It's just so bad business practices, again. And at this point, I've actually sculpted the first cat mask. So I'm going to show it here. There it is, cat mask. I might have to touch up a few areas, but that's the basic sculpt. Anyway, another thing to consider is shipping costs. Because shipping masks, especially to other countries, can be expensive. Make sure that you are like sure that you can do international shipping before you do international shipping, because it can be expensive and sometimes Etsy doesn't calculate costs right. So make sure that you have, like, that's another reason why you shouldn't do it, is because shipping is so confusing and expensive if you do it wrong. I did it wrong for the first, like, however long I was doing Etsy, like first few months, I guess, first year. I did it wrong and it cost me a lot more money than I should have been losing to ship to other countries internationally. So just be sure you're using the right packaging, the right shipping labels, and the right time frame for shipping, because some people may expect their item by a certain time, especially considering that Etsy says you should get this item by this time based on how you input the shipping information. So if shipping is wrong or you ship it late, that is on you. Make sure to also, like, there's a part where it's like, do you do returns or exchanges? Make sure you understand what it means to do a return or exchange if you have that on. Because if someone goes and tries to do a return or exchange and you're like, oh shoot, I don't know how to do that, make sure you figure it out, because no one's going to be there to help you. Another thing to consider is if you don't have a ride to the post office, or you can't actually go to drop the packages off, that's another thing to consider when it comes to shipping and whether you can do an Etsy business, because you have to ship those packages out. They're paying customers, you know? And another thing with shipping is making sure your item doesn't break in transit. If you have to package it, make sure you pay for enough packing supplies like bubble wrap, tissue paper, whatever you need to secure your mask so it doesn't break in transit. If it breaks in transit, chances are you're gonna have to pay the customer, because it's kind of your fault, you know what I mean? You don't have to, but it'd be the nice thing to do, and that's another cost, you know, something to consider. And on that same vein is understanding what to do if a package gets lost. Being able to send another one or figure out what to do in that scenario, you know, that's another thing you have to think about and do, because when it happens and you don't know what to do, then, you know, you're out of luck. And another thing I want to bring up circles back to the listings that I see that already exist that are just against Etsy's TOS. I just want to make it clear that that is a form of tax evasion, because if you're making them pay twice, you're kind of tax evading, especially if you're not going to file your taxes the following year for Etsy and include it. Tax evasion, guys. You're trying to cut out the cost of taxes, especially if you're charging them twice to avoid that cost. That is legitimately illegal, and that actually could get you jail time, I'm pretty sure. I don't know about that, but I'm pretty sure if you are, like, intentionally doing it, like charging them twice to avoid the Etsy fees and, like, taxes, and you're not paying the taxes that you actually owe after, because Etsy doesn't take out all of the taxes, that would be tax evasion, and that is what a lot of Etsy accounts are doing. So keep that in mind, especially if you're underage and it's your parents' account, because your parents are not going to be happy when they get a call from the IRS. So be careful. But I think it's just an important thing to bring home is that Etsy doesn't take out all of the things you owe from the Etsy purchase. It'll give you the money that you have to put some aside so you can pay for taxes, because Etsy does not take out all of the taxes. You have to pay taxes. And whether your stance on taxes, you know, whatever, you still have to pay them, you know what I mean? And if it's your parents' account, they have to pay it, and they need to understand that they owe this money and that it's not on you, because if you are a minor and this account was made by them to be your account, it's still not your account, it's theirs. So they would be responsible, not you, and that could lead you into some circumstances. But again, something about commission specifically that I want to bring up is that it's really quick to get burnt out making other people's designs. If you've never done commissions before, you probably wouldn't know that, but even though, no matter how much you like art and how fun it is for you, if you are doing commissions primarily for long enough, it's going to tire you out. Make sure you open enough slots that you can handle if you're doing commissions. Make sure you don't open too many and have to owe people and do chargebacks. It's really not good. But some commissioners can be really, really rude when it comes to the details of their masks. You have to understand that there's going to be people that are really mad at you at some point in your business career. Whether that's posting on social media and hate comments, or it's a commissioner being really angry at you, it's still not pleasant, and it's not something that I want any of you guys to have to deal with. So if you can avoid it, do your best to avoid it. Another thing that I want to bring up is that if you are the type of person who will get disappointed if your stuff does not sell, don't put it on Etsy and don't sell your stuff. See, one thing that people don't see about a lot of the masks on Etsy is that they don't sell, or that it takes months to sell. Even some of my masks take a good while to sell. Luckily, I have a pretty heavy social media presence, so my masks tend to go faster. But if you don't really have that like social media presence, chances are your mask isn't gonna go instantly. So if you're the kind of person that would get really sad if no one wants your art, because chances are someone does, it's just because your art has a price on it. Some people have to wait or save or might not be able to get it. You know what I mean? It's not that nobody likes your art if it doesn't sell. I just want to make that very clear to anybody who does have stuff on Etsy or who wants to have stuff on Etsy. It's not because they don't want it. It's just because nobody can afford anything right now. You know what I mean? And masks are luxury items. They're items that you don't necessarily need to survive, and they're expensive. So if someone's not buying your masks, you could always discount it. One thing to do is run a sale. If you could run a sale on Etsy, that tends to get more people interested. But don't be discouraged if someone isn't buying your stuff. It's probably not because it's bad. It's probably just because it costs money. You know what I mean? But again, if you get really sad by kind of things not going, things not selling right away, or maybe a bad review, then it's probably not a good idea to start selling on Etsy. But circling back to international shipping for a second, make sure there's something going on. I don't know what it is, but it's in Europe, and it makes shipping things to Europe darn near impossible. So if you don't know about that, or you're like me and I don't understand how any of that works, don't ship to Europe. Except I think that excludes the UK, because something to do with shipping internationally. But just, I would recommend not shipping to Europe if you don't know how to ship to Europe. If you don't know how to ship internationally, don't ship internationally, especially if it comes to Europe, because there is something like actively going on in Europe right now with shipping internationally. So if you don't know what to do there, don't ship there. I just want to make it clear that I'm not shipping to certain countries right now just because I am not sure what's going on with Europe. I don't know if I'll be able to ship to Europe ever again. We will see. I do not know. But again, that just goes to show you have to keep an active watch on what you're doing on Etsy, because there could be stuff that comes up again, like those international laws, where it makes it really difficult to ship there. So another thing you have to do is just pay attention to laws and how to ship things, because if you don't, then you could get in some trouble. But another thing, this is again circling back to the listings on Etsy that just aren't against TOS. If you want to do mass commissions and you're taking mass commissions, try to make it as easy to commission you as possible, because if it's really complicated and hard to commission you, like you have to read all these certain things and figure out what is what, they probably will not commission you. If you make it really easy for the customer, really convenient for the customer, really affordable for the customer, they will buy. Every single time, they will buy. If you don't do those things, they might buy, but they won't as much. But one thing I want to make clear is that if you want to sell your art but can't yet, waiting to sell your art will probably make your art even better by the time it is able to be sold. So if you are let's say 14, 15 years old right now, and you make masks, and you want to sell them, and you want to make them, and you want to do this, right? But unfortunately your parents won't let you. Don't really feel bad about that, because according to this video, it's not really good to have your parents run your Etsy for you. So if you wait, then you can build your social media presence, which is to say advertising for your products, which is huge, because that's why advertising exists, because it gets it in your head and then you know about it and then you can buy the product. But if you can't sell yet, don't be discouraged, because by the time you can sell, if you keep honing your craft, you'll sell. You'll be able to sell them for more money. You'll be able to have more people buy them. If you just keep working on your craft until you can actually sell, then you'll be all set once you can. But don't feel too bad if you can't sell on Etsy right away, or if I'd recommend don't sell on Etsy at all, to be honest. But listen, selling on Etsy isn't necessarily all it's cracked up to be. It's a business, and it's a difficult business at times. So don't be too discouraged if you're not able to sell on Etsy right now. Chances are it's better to either wait or to just not bother with it. Especially when you consider that you probably won't make a lot of money selling masks unless you do the advertising and the, which isn't to say pay for an ad on Etsy. Don't do that. You can if you want to, but you don't have to, and I'd rather save money to advertise myself, that's what I do personally, than pay for the ads. Because if you just build your social media presence and just keep posting on social media like every day, then you'll just have the advertisements right there for you. You know what I mean? You'll be your own advertisement rather than having to pay for one, you know? But don't worry too much about the selling on Etsy. It's nice, but chances are you won't make nearly as much money as you'd want to, and you probably won't get nearly as much reach as you'd want to. But if you keep pushing social media and keep advertising, keep posting, keep building, keep improving your craft, then you'll get sales eventually. Okay, and with that, I have just finished the second cat base sculpt. So now I have 3 of them. Let's get the third one. Okay, I have 3 of them. Alright, now that these masks are made, it is time to end the episode. I hope you guys learned something about selling on Etsy in this today. I didn't actually intend for that to be my ramble today, but I talked about Etsy and why you probably shouldn't run a mass business on Etsy, and if you do happen to want to run a mass business, some tips for how to do that. So, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Oh wait, if you would like to like this video and subscribe, that would be really, really helpful. I forgot to throw that in there. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next time.